Whenever a new client walks into Weeping Tree Books, I've learned to just smile. I've been the bookkeeper here for 3 months, and in all that time I haven't set foot out the door. My predecessor, Anna, left color-coded cables on the floor to show which paths were safe. I once followed the yellow one, hoping for an exit. Instead, the ceiling began to shrink, the aisles grew narrow, and I found myself slithering on my belly toward a room filled with bodies that weren't quite dead yet. I don't follow the cables anymore. I stay by the desk. I watch the ordinary folks, the tourists who wander and curious about the willow tree out front. If the shelves start rearranging themselves or the signs above the aisles turn into symbols from a nightmare, I gently distract them. Did you know about our 30% off sale? I'll ask. It's a lie. We don't sell books here. We just keep people oriented away from the suffocating, hungry darkness in the back. Then there was Amy. She started bringing me meals when her brother John, the local cook, fell ill. She was a flicker of light in this tomb. We grew close, maybe too close. On Christmas Eve, she stayed late. We were awoken at 3 a.m. by the sound of a crying child. I told her it was just the building stretching, but she wouldn't listen. She remembered her brother slicing his foot open as a kid and couldn't ignore the wail. She ran into the aisles before I could stop her. We found it 3 aisles down, a heap of white sheets, squirming on the floor. The crying stopped the moment we got close. The bundle didn't just move. It scrambled. It wasn't a child. It was a predator mimicking a child to lure us into the deep stacks. We barely made it back to the staff room, barricading the door as something slammed against the wood with enough force to rattle our bones. I told Amy everything then, about the lawyer who trapped me here, the physics-defying geometry of the shelves, and the customers who look normal until you see them out of the corner of your eye. To my horror, she didn't look surprised. She looked recognized. She told me about her PhD mentor, Dr. Belash, who studied anomalies. Places that are larger on the inside than the outside. Places like this. As the sun began to rise through the grime-stained windows, I realized the man in the leather jacket I'd seen lurking for weeks wasn't a customer. He was a scout. And the red-headed man circling the plaza? He wasn't lost. He was marking the perimeter. Weeping Tree Books isn't just a prison for me. It's a feeding ground. And now that Amy has seen what's under the sheets, the shop isn't going to let either of us leave. The willow tree outside is drooping lower today. I think it's waiting for us to join the roots. The morning after the attack, the man in the leather jacket, Jacob, finally approached the desk instead of disappearing into the stacks. He didn't ask for a book. He asked for the log of the unmeasured, a ledger I had never heard of but felt a cold shiver at the mention of. Amy, still pale from the night before, stepped forward and confronted him about Dr. Belash, her old mentor. Jacob's smile was thin and sharp, devoid of any warmth, as he explained that the bookstore wasn't just an anomaly but a gateway that required a constant witness to remain anchored in this reality. He hinted that my 3-month stint was nearly over, not because I was being released, but because the shop was preparing to digest its current keeper. Before I could demand more answers, he stepped backward into the shadows of the botany section and vanished, leaving behind the heavy scent of ozone and rotting wood. Amy and I spent the afternoon searching the shelves near the desk, desperate for the ledger Jacob mentioned. As we pulled books from the shelves, the text inside began to change in real time, the letters scrambling into frantic warnings written in my own handwriting. One volume, bound in what felt uncomfortably like human skin, whispered my name whenever I turned my back. Amy found a map tucked into a cookbook that showed the bookstore's layout, but the ink was wet and moving, showing the walls expanding and contracting like a beating heart. We realized then that the store was listening to our plans, rearranging its physical form to prevent us from reaching the basement where the log was supposedly kept. The bell above the door rang, but when I looked up, no one was there. Only a trail of wet, barefoot prints leading from the entrance directly to where we stood. Footprints. We discovered a hidden hatch beneath the travel section, a part of the floor that hadn't existed an hour ago. The air rising from the hole was freezing and smelled of the same moist breath I had felt in the yellow cable tunnel. Against my better judgment, Amy insisted we go down, arguing that the lawyer's warning about every attempt to escape failing only applied to the front door. As we descended the rusted ladder, the light from the shop above began to dim until it was a pinprick, and the sounds of the bookstore were replaced by a rhythmic, metallic grinding. We reached the bottom only to find a hallway lined with mirrors, but our reflections were 3 seconds behind our actual movements. In the glass, I could see something standing directly behind Amy, though the space behind her in the real world was empty. In the mirror, the thing behind Amy was a tall, distorted version of my predecessor, Anna, her eyes stitched shut with the same color-coded cables she had used to mark the floors. I screamed for Amy to move, but her reflection stayed perfectly still, staring at me with a look of pure malice while the real Amy turned around in confusion. The mirrors began to crack, the glass spider webbing outward as the reflected Anna reached out of the frame to grab at my throat. I swung a heavy flashlight, shattering the glass, but each shard now held a tiny, screaming image of the room we were in. We ran blindly through the dark, the floor beneath us shifting from concrete to something soft and porous, like a giant tongue. The grinding noise grew louder, and I realized it wasn't machinery. It was the sound of teeth gnashing together deep underground. We stumbled into a small lit office at the end of the fleshy corridor, a room that looked exactly like the one I had seen in the Modern Hunter photo guide. Sitting in a chair was a young boy with wide, glassy blue eyes, the same boy I had seen in the Tunnel of Bodies. He wasn't a corpse here. He was playing with a set of toy soldiers made of bone, and he looked up at us with a terrifyingly calm expression. He told us that his father, Alm, was the one who built the logic of the shop and that the shop was hungry because Alm hadn't come home. The boy reached into his pocket and pulled out the heart-shaped locket I'd seen on the woman's body, offering it to me. When I took it, the locket snapped shut on my thumb, drawing blood that was instantly sucked into the metal as if the object itself were parched. The office door slammed shut, and the voice of the lawyer who hired me crackled over an old intercom system. He congratulated me on making it to the editor's suite, and explained that the books upstairs were fueled by the memories of those trapped in the basement. He revealed that Amy wasn't there by accident. She was the replacement the shop had chosen to keep the narrative going, while I transitioned into a permanent part of the collection. Amy looked at me, her eyes filling with tears, but her shadow on the wall was growing longer and wider, sprouting limbs that didn't match her body. The lawyer told me that to save her, I had to find the log of the unmeasured and strike out her name, but every word I wrote would cost a year of my own life. The room began to fill with black ink, rising from the floorboards like a flood. The ink was thick and smelled of copper, staining our clothes and burning our skin where it touched. Amy and I climbed onto the desk as the boy with the blue eyes dissolved into a pool of darkness, laughing as he vanished. I realized the log wasn't a book at all. It was the desk itself, the wood etched with thousands of names in tiny, cramped script. I found Amy's name near the edge, the ink still fresh and shimmering. I tried to scratch it out with my fingernails, but the wood was as hard as iron. The shadow creature that had been Amy's reflection began to merge with her, her skin turning the color of old parchment. In a moment of desperation, I used the sharp edge of the heart-shaped locket to carve into the desk, the wood screaming in a human voice as I worked. As I carved the final line through Amy's name, a sharp pain exploded in my chest, and I felt my vision begin to gray at the edges. My hands, once youthful, began to wrinkle and age before my eyes, the skin spotting and the joints swelling with sudden arthritis. Amy gasped as the shadow thing was ripped away from her, vanishing into the rising ink with a frustrated howl. The ink began to drain rapidly through the floorboards, leaving us gasping in the empty office. But the room was different now. The door was gone, replaced by a wall of books that seemed to be made of frozen moments of my own life. I saw a book titled The 3 Months of Ben, and I knew that if I opened it, I would be trapped inside my own memories forever. Amy grabbed my hand, her strength the only thing keeping me upright as my aged body struggled to breathe. We pushed against the wall of books, and the entire structure of the bookstore began to groan and tilt at a 45-degree angle. Above us, we could hear the willow tree's roots breaking through the ceiling, the long, thin branches reaching down like fingers to pull us back up. We climbed the roots, passing through the mirror room, which was now filled with the bodies of every bookkeeper who had come before me. They weren't dead. They were reading, their eyes moving rapidly behind translucent lids as they processed the store's endless data. Jacob stood among them, no longer wearing the leather jacket, but dressed in the same uniform I wore, a silent warning that the cycle was never truly broken. We burst through the floor of the main shop, the morning sun blindingly bright through the front windows. The willow tree was thrashing in the courtyard, its leaves turning a violent shade of crimson. Amy pulled me toward the door, the bell ringing frantically as the aisles began to collapse behind us, turning into a singular, narrow tunnel of darkness. I reached the threshold, but my foot stayed planted on the floor. The lawyer's curse was still active, and the shop wouldn't let its bookkeeper leave. Amy refused to let go, her grip tightening as she stepped out into the rain, literally dragging my aging soul through the invisible barrier. There was a sound like a page being torn out of a book, a sickening rip that echoed through the plaza. I fell onto the wet concrete, a free man, but when I looked at my reflection in a puddle, I saw a man of 80 years staring back, and in the window of weeping tree books, a new figure was already